This man's wife wouldn't touch him and wanted space, but now their intimacy is thriving like never before.
But she
Okay.
was very cold, and she didn't want to hug me. She didn't want to she was kind of like pursing her lips when we spoke.
Yep.
Just very distant. And
Yeah.
yeah,
And how is it now?
we're very affectionate. Like we make out. She initiates like cuddling even.
Oh my
Doesn't
gosh, I love it.
um we go on dates like about once a week. I we talk about future plans.
This came after he applied 3 habits with his wife. Before Vitaly turned his marriage completely around, he started off here.
What was actually happening when you started researching? Like, did your wife say something? Did she mention divorce, separation? Like, what was going on?
Yeah. Yeah, I think like a few weeks before she mentioned separation, because at some point she said like I don't want to have I don't want anything physical between us again. And if this is a problem for you, then we should separate. We should talk about maybe just being co-parents.
Vitaly made a common mistake that many men make. He took his wife for granted. He was physically present yet was emotionally absent, which is worse than if he just wasn't there at all. Now think of your marriage like this car, and communication is the gasoline. And trying to drive a car without the gas will obviously get you nowhere fast. Vitaly's marriage had been running on empty for many years. When his wife would bring up concerns about the relationship, he would dismiss it, like poking little holes in the engine and causing a gas leak that he couldn't see. The gauge wasn't picking it up, and he never checked under the car since he trusted things would be just better down the road, that they would just talk at some point. He wrongfully assumed that she would always be there. How many times have you thought that? But over time, he didn't even realize the marriage had stopped working altogether. Their bond that was once a strong rope, tightly bound together, was slowly undone, lying lifeless, collecting rust like an old car in a countryside ditch.
I kind of realized a little too late that my marriage was in trouble. I mean, not as late as it could have been. So could have been worse. When I started like researching like what divorce would be like and just the cost associated with it, it kind of just like hit me. I was like, wow, this is terrible.
This was a wake-up call for Vitaly. For the first time in his whole entire life, his marriage was on the rocks and divorce was on that horizon. Their talk of separating and becoming co-parents for the kids' sake was a grim reality. He never thought it would apply to him, but he's seeing that it was. He felt sick literally on the inside, but it motivated him to take some action. To Vitaly, research was vital. He was a man who liked making informed decisions. So he sought out help in many different places, all the different places. He went to therapists, he bought other programs before seeing mine, all the different relationship books. But as you'll see, none of those methods worked for him.
I spoke to Marriage Mastery first. This was one of the first companies I reached out, but I was like, you know
Yeah.
what, I'm going to do my research. I talked to 5 other companies,
Interesting.
or 5 total.
Wow.
And they have more or less similar marketing, I guess. But both Josh's videos as well as the call onboarding, the call, the initial call I had with the team kind of just resonated the most with me. I was also like not happy with my personal therapist because he wasn't actually giving me any advice, and in our couples therapy, like it wasn't actually that helpful either.
Vitaly discovered that talking about the problem simply doesn't work. It's negative by nature. He needed a positive method of change that he could apply to himself, completely independent of his wife, since his wife was not on board. He worked closely with our experienced marriage coach, Liz, and started applying these 3 habits to his life. The first habit, transform your wife's cold and stoic demeanor toward you and soften her up like a butter in a frying pan. And it will melt and eradicate patterns of communication that you didn't even realize were destroying your marriage. You will become a pillar of masculinity that allows her innermost feminine being to flow freely. And Vitaly can really attest to this.
I think that was like the most important thing.
Yeah.
So that she felt safe bringing up issues, and boy did she bring up
Yep,
everything.
for it. Yes, for it. But you were more prepared for that conflict resolution so that you could move forward.
Right.
The habit I'm talking about is to receive and respond. You see, every woman tests a man. Women are literally hardwired to do this, and have been doing so since the beginning of time, I would argue. She may tease you about something you're insecure about, or give you a hard time about the chores you said that you would do but didn't get around to. She could unload about a frustrating day of work, and it seems like she's coming down on you like an emotional rainstorm. These situations can vary, but they are all tests to their core. And how to pass these tests comes down to keeping a masculine frame and not reacting in panic, not shutting down, not running away, not losing your temper, and definitely not trying to solve her problems through logic. Well, just do that, just do this. What if I did that, right? All the defensiveness. You need to respond with empathy and receive what she says first, and then you craft your retort. Now, this was a game changer for Vitaly because, like he himself said, it created a safe space for his wife to be in her feminine self. But even though he understood this right away, it took practice. And when you keep your masculine frame and become unreactive to her tests, it doesn't mean you're this cold machine. She still needs to hear empathy in your voice.
In the beginning, it was a little rough because I did the kind of mechanical thing.
Yeah, I remember.
She called me out on it.
Yeah.
She said, stop doing that shit. It's like, you sound like a robot.
Once Vitaly learned to be less mechanical in his tone and more soft like a sponge, the ones that can kind of just, the yellow and green ones, just they absorb everything. That's how you need to be. That's how Vitaly was, because he was able to absorb but still keep his shape. And that opened up the door to real recovery in his marriage. Then the second habit came naturally for Vitaly. That habit is soothing when we achieve it. I'm sure sometime in your life you've carried bags of groceries, right? And I don't mean just like a bag or two. I mean that one time you tried saving yourself multiple trips by getting all the grocery bags and carrying them as many as you can, waddling like a duck, right? I remember doing this once in college when the car was about 5 minutes parked away through walking. 5 minutes doesn't seem like a long way, but with like 40 to 60 pounds of groceries, it's pretty far. When I carried those bags, man, I was just like, my fingers are just falling off. And I told myself, no, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. It was just so much pain. Then when I finally got inside, I let them go onto the floor low so I didn't break anything. And I had that huge sigh of release. It took me a moment to put some things away, but that burdensome journey with all those groceries and the satisfaction of releasing them describes how this next habit feels emotionally when you do it successfully.
And also I think the big one was forgiveness. Just letting go of all expectations. I had a lot of hidden agendas, hidden expectations from her that I was resentful about.
Yeah.
And I would kind of bring it up. There's a lot of things, like I'm resentful that she doesn't keep the house clean, that she doesn't work as much, that she lets our daughter, like, I don't know, doesn't do the things that I want her to do with her, and or she spends time doing things that I would disapprove of. And I just let go of all of that.
This is all about fostering forgiveness, learning to let go. It's easier said than done. A lot of guys think it's like flipping on this on-off switch and say, okay, I forgive my wife, no problem. But it's not like that. It's more like a gradual turning of the knob. And you have to practice it every single day, because if you let it go, it'll slowly go back towards that resentment side. You have to truly understand how you have hurt her. Use extreme empathy, how your daily actions over time, that lack of connection led her and you to a dark emotional place that was just layered over with complacency. It is crucial in mending your marriage and the starting point on the path towards intimacy and connectedness again. You must put in the effort, and you have to let go. Don't harness a hidden agenda. Don't bring up the past issues into the present. And remember, this happens over time, not overnight. So be mindful and make that effort to foster real forgiveness. Achieving this will make the third habit effortless for you. And I would say it's even the most important habit compared to the other two, but this third habit happens when the first two take place. You must create that safe space, let go of that resentment, forgive her, and then you can do the final habit. Now, have you ever been to Alcatraz, that prison in San Francisco that's on that island? Well, it was a permanent closure in 1963, and it was one of the most notorious federal penitentiaries in US history. It was the prison system's prison, housing of the worst American criminals, like Al Capone or George Machine Gun Kelly. Once you step foot on the rock, you feel the sense of isolation, and the harsh reality the prisoner's face starts to seep in. When you take a guided tour of the place, you hear stories of what it was like to be a former inmate. You can envision yourself in a dark, solitary confinement cell. You can feel the intensity of when a prisoner tried to escape, and you can experience further isolation when you step outside and look across at San Francisco Bay, the bustling life on the mainland, carrying on without you. You are absent from it, and it must have been torture for the prisoners. Now, there's an audio guide for tourists that vividly conveys the painful realities that I just laid out to you. But walking through Alcatraz without the audio guide, it's still surreal, yet you miss out on so much. You don't get as much of a vivid experience of what it would have been like to be a prisoner there at that time. And that's what this final habit is all about.
Being present, that was the big thing. I mean, it sounds simple, but like, wow, I really underestimated just how much I was not really present.
The point here is that your presence is a present. It may sound like a sentimental play on words, but it's a powerful truth. So hear me out. For years, Vitaly was absent. He was absent so much that eventually the only thing present was the separation. It's like he'd been wandering through an abandoned prison without a guide, missing the context and significance of what he was seeing. How many times has your wife called you when you're in the middle of work, okay? When you're in the middle of something, and she's telling you a story about her day, frustration, whatever it is, and you lose track and you start to give her the, yeah, okay, yep, sure. Meanwhile, you're probably scrolling through Facebook, work emails, Instagram, if you have it, and she eventually says something like, well, you're clearly busy, I'll just let you go. Now, I confess, I'm guilty as charged of doing this many times, but when Vitaly became present of his behavior, it started to change for him. He started to put his phone away when his wife and him were together. He looked at her in the eyes when they spoke and gave her his undivided attention. He started applying this to every relationship and every conversation, not just with his wife. And after years of being absent, his presence was the greatest present he could give his wife, far better than any material gift.
How everything's going now.
I mean, now things are more or less okay. I mean, I would say we're not like fully reconciled, but we're both working towards, like, we resolve issues as they come up.
That's a big
Like, we have pretty good communication. Like, the tests have slowed down a bit. So I think in a good way. These things still come up.
Yeah.
But there was a point when it was like
I remember that, like rapid fire.
a rapid fire. Jeez.
By being present, he can make his wife a top priority without compromising his own purpose as a man. You see how that works? He wasn't bending over backwards to try and win his wife back. He wasn't showering her with the needy behavior. He was simply being present in the moment, listening to her like we discussed earlier. Your presence is a gift, so you give it to her every single day. I cannot convey how important it is to be able to look at her in the eyes, no matter if she's screaming, yelling, frustrated, whatever it is, and you understand her, you see her, right? Especially as a kid, if she wasn't seen by her parents, which many of your guys' wives, she had trauma, right? She has this masculine nature to her. Now, there are certain limitations that prevent you from being able to have that interconnectedness with her because you're distracted by other things that you need to take care of. Maybe some past beliefs that are holding you back. Now, you can try to find these past beliefs by yourself and see what has gone wrong with you that has led to your marriage situation. However, after doing this for thousands and thousands of hours with me and my team, we can tell within literally 20 minutes after you telling us your situation, this is the problem, that's the problem, this is the problem. This is what you do to fix it, that's what you do to fix it. If that sounds good to you and you are fully committed and ready to invest in saving your marriage, what you can do right now is click the link down below, set up a free call with the marriage evaluation team, but you must be fully ready to commit emotionally and financially to invest into this because we are a premium service. So we help men save their marriage when their wife wants out, okay? Thanks for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.